This is the Goodology Podcast, episode number 5. It's a beautiful day.
Welcome to the Goodology Podcast, an audio journey of inspiring people who have overcome obstacles and have worked to make the world a better place. This program presents stories of empowerment and positivity and helps you to answer the questions, how can I help and how can I serve? Find out these answers now and more with your host, Bernie Fallon.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. And what a guest we have today. It's Carol C.C. Miller. Carol is quite a match for a show called Goodology. One of her several Facebook pages is called All Things Positivity. She was nominated to become part of a book by Will Bowen about 50 happy people in the world share what makes them happy. She shared her free hug event. She founded something called Global Free Hugs, and we talk about that. In the interview, we'll also talk about different things like the word Pollyanna. We talk about what a positive influence Bishop Desmond Tutu has been for her. We talk about the St. Louis Cardinals, of course. And we talk about an anonymous gift of $500 when she really needed it. Carol likes to remind people of their own power and do it one person at a time. And I should be calling her Cece instead of Carol. But nonetheless, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you very much, and have a great day. Our guest today is Carol Miller. Carol, the world is more positive because you are in it. I really appreciate what you're doing. Are you ready to share what a positive influence you are?
I'm absolutely ready.
Awesome. You know, looking at the things that Carol does is these are the Facebook pages: Positive Focus Productions, All Things Positivity, and through her website, we see that she covers a lot: the power of positivity, releasing limiting beliefs, love over fear through positive thought leadership and mind-body spirit, service, charity, philanthropy, fun social events, health over illness, abundance over lack, and peace over conflict. I had to read all that because I like the feeling of what you do. Can you describe what you do these days or today, what your job is, what exciting things are happening?
What I feel like I've been put on this earth to do is to remind people of their own inner power and that they really matter in this world. We can easily start talking about big groups of people, whether a big group of Democrats or Republicans or this nationality or this ethnicity, but in each one of those groups is one person multiplied. So I really like to focus on one person at a time to let them know that they have power in their own lives to live a happier life. Each individual increasing their inner power. Yes. Cool. Rather than seeing the world as 7 billion people, I like to see the world as one person 7 billion times. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's the way that, because everyone has impulses that makes them do certain things. And the way that we're going to really experience change is through the smallest inner bit of energy and expanding that positivity in each person, rather than, orating something to large masses. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think when we look at it as a big populace of problems or good, it gets so big that we can't even begin to think how we as one person can make a difference. But even simply sharing your smile is making a difference for somebody that you may never even know that lifted them up that day. It really is making an impact, and I love those stories as well. And speaking of stories, there's a book about happy stories, and you were one of the happy stories in there. Can you tell me about that? That's just happening recently, right? Yes, it just came out paperback on Monday, and Will Bowen is the name of the author. And a few months ago, somebody nominated me to be part of the book. He was looking for 50 happy people around the world to share their stories on what makes them happy. And some people have gone through some really strong challenges in their lives and have still come out happy. And he interviewed me, and we ended up talking about free hugs. And so he shared my story of my very first free hug event. Oh, so that's Will Bowen. Yes. And 50 happy people he interviewed. Yes. The story you had was your free hugs, although you have a lot of stories. Yes. There's a word that I saw on your website that I see and I kind of use in some of my presentations and events and things like that. And the word is Pollyanna.
And over the years, I love that name, but over the years, I would only hear the word mentioned, and I never realized that it was a book written in 1913, and then it was a movie, like about 1960. And did you know that?
I did know of it, but I've not read it or seen the movie. I just know the title, and the people have said that before when they disagree with having a positive focus in their life.
Yeah, so I would like to read the book one of these days.
Me too.
That's on my agenda, yeah. So tell me about the word Pollyanna and how it applies with you.
I'm definitely a happy person, and I think when people see that, especially if they're in a space of challenge, they don't see that they could possibly be that happy too. So they assume my life is perfect and that I don't have any challenges. And I certainly have, and part of what got me into this work was working through challenges. So it really is all about focusing on the little miracles, the little things of that challenge that make you realize why you went through it in the first place. So my life by no means is perfect. I love every minute of it, and I embrace when I'm going through a challenge because I know it's allowing me to open my heart even a little bit bigger.
Yeah, that's wonderful. In a couple of minutes, we'll talk about the beauty of problems and things that you've overcome, because some people look, at me or other people, this author that I interviewed, they say, oh, your life is so perfect. You don't have the problems that I had. And we just may not show it at the moment, but we've all come through tough times.
Exactly.
What I want to ask you right now, which is, I think, kind of cool, there's a phrase that I love, and that phrase is I like. There's these two simple words that seem to be the gateway to positive energy. When you say those words, you begin to release. Your inner energy begins to flow. So can you tell me 3 things that would follow the phrase I like?
I like the sun. I like the ocean. I like smiling people.
I like that too. That's awesome. And then I like expanded. What are you really passionate about?
I'm passionate, really, very much I'm passionate about allowing people to see their own inner power and to see that they really do have choices in creating a happier, more peaceful life. And then I'm also very passionate about the water. I used to sail for years. So those are my two biggest passions.
That's good. What about the St. Louis Cardinals?
Oh, they're definitely a passion as well.
I had to bring that
yes,
up because I love that you're a Cardinal fan. I went to a game about 25 years ago, and the stadium was full, and everyone was so passionate about the Cardinals and wearing red. And I thought, wow, it just would be nice to live in the town for a couple of years.
When I was in high school, that was my intention, and then I ended up in Chicago, and I love every minute of it. But I was going to live in St. Louis when I graduated.
You ended up in Chicago. Well, it's good to be a Cardinal fan rather than a Cub fan.
I agree.
But, I would like to see them do well, too. Back to your story. And growing up, you talked about, thinking about living in St. Louis, after high school, college, or whatever. What were your plans and what were your goals? Actually,
my plans, because I am a huge baseball fan, not as much now as I was as a kid, was to do public relations for the St. Louis Cardinals. That was my goal. I went to college in public relations. And just as life, changes and things, it's always so interesting to me that I never, ever would have imagined doing what I do now back in college. It was such a faint idea. I mean, I've always been a fairly positive person, but certainly not to this level of working and coaching with people on it. So it was just those little changes, that you go through, and a new job here that leads you to new people, that leads you to a new book, that leads you to a new class or whatever. So it's been a fun ride.
And inside yourself, you start realizing that there's a need, and then that you have the ability to help that need.
Yes.
And going through that part of your life, did you have any challenges or problems that were hard to overcome?
Through that part of my life, in my high school, college years, I was really very insecure not with the world, like my friends and everybody. I was very positive, but for my own self, I was really unsure of how I could live my dream. Like, I don't think that I kind of would love to go back and see me that at that time of my life. I don't think I believe that I could live those dreams. And so because of that, now looking back, I certainly put in obstacles that did not allow that. Like I did, I worked for the Cardinals through college. I worked for a minor league team, but there was never an opportunity to work for the professional team. And so just little changes like that. And then really it was from reading books. I started reading like Neil Donald Walsh and got into personal development, where I really began to see my choices and not live as a victim to the circumstances. I saw that I made choices that created those circumstances.
Right. I think that, younger kids, teenagers and younger, are asked what they want to do when they grow up. And really, should they really know at that point?
Exactly. I mean, I thought I knew, and I'm sure
Right.
had I gone that path, I would have enjoyed it because I so love the Cardinals. So being in that environment, but it would be a completely different life than what I lead now, and I love it. So I'm grateful that did not work out.
So there was a point where you did not get the job that you wanted, and then things changed, and it actually worked out for the better.
Correct, yes.
Now, what about the beauty of problems? I do talk about that in my book. There's a chapter of the beauty of problems. And, sometimes when you, first of all, notice, a lot of people avoid and never notice problems. But when you notice it, embrace it, and overcome it, you're a lot stronger because of it. Is there a situation where that applies in your life?
Oh, my goodness. I have several situations. But one that I would say might seem a little odd to people, but really has been a huge impact for me was I am short. I'm 4'10", and my favorite sandwich place that I like to eat is called Potbelly. And for whatever reason, they have super high counters for ordering your sandwich. And so I would always go in there thinking, they're not going to see me. They're going to ask the person behind me what they want for lunch. And I would just walk in defeated. And it wasn't even consciously, like, I didn't even think I was thinking those things going in. And somebody was telling me, so I'd always bring a friend in and they would order for me. And I realized I am walking into this place saying I'm going to not be seen. I'm creating that space for myself. So It took some practice, but then I started walking in, shoulders back, head high, and feeling confident that it would be just fine. And I've never had that problem again since. And honestly, I didn't even have that problem that much then. I mean, it would happen occasionally, but it wasn't like every time I went in, they talked to the person behind me. But I had made this big story in my head that they're not going to see me. And, I mean, it really has changed a lot for me. Besides the sandwich shop, that is not a concern. It's like, if I want to be seen, I'm going to be seen.
Right. And that attitude that you held previously affected all other areas of your life. So that's just where you noticed it.
Absolutely.
And then when you changed it, it positively affected other areas in your life.
It's been what has helped me create what I do now. I mean, I was doing it a little bit then, but I wasn't truly ready to be seen in order to share my message with people. So I wasn't. So it was really, it sounds like a small story, but it was really very impactful for me.
Yeah, that's a great metaphor. What's another example of a problem that you overcame?
Well, I was working in, like I said, I went to college for public relations, and I was working in a job with a technology company when the economy tanked, and my job was to write press releases on new products as well as send the team out into conferences and event planning. We didn't have new products to write press releases, nor did we have money for the conferencing, so I was really in a state of, when am I going to get laid off or that kind of thing, and the company ended up closing, and I was wanting to do what I do now, but I was afraid to do it. So the comfort of having that 40-hour-a-week job, the paycheck every 2 weeks, kept me in a place that I'm always going to create a happy environment for myself, but it was not my passion at all. And so it was terrifying when that first happened, but I knew that it was opening up the opportunity, if I was ready to grab it, to do what I love to do. It was scary to walk through it, but it was almost one of those things that it needed to happen, or I would have stayed in my comfort zone.
Yeah, you're right about that. Did you go right into what you're doing now?
I did. I mean, I've had part-time jobs here and there, especially right off to help.
Right.
But no, I decided that I really know that this is why I am here on Earth.
Amazing leap of faith.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah, and that's just, and that's what I was like 26 years old, and I had a business by myself, and the business failed. I was always by myself, but I thought and thought and thought, what do I really want to do in the world? And the word was good. When I thought about, health, nutrition, and environmental health and spiritual health, but it all boiled down to, it was just good. I wanted to do good. And so it was a challenge, and there was no real, model to follow, or there was no way to make money that I knew of, but, like you, somehow you found the way. And that's what I wanted to ask you about, today. What's it like waking up, and what do? You do coaching, you work with a wonderful friend of mine named Stephanie in Positive Focus Productions. What's your day like?
My day is amazing. It can be stressful, like anybody's day can be, what we focus on. But I coach people on focusing on what they want in their lives rather than what they don't want in their lives, and seeing the good in challenges. We're not going to get rid of challenges, nor do I want to, because if everything was right, happy and perfect all the time, then would we even notice it was happy, because we don't have a comparison. Right. So I'm event management. So right now, Stephanie and I are working on an event that we have coming up in a couple of weeks. So that keeps me busy, and I just really love every day.
What's the event that's coming up?
It's Love Fest at the Bodhi Spiritual Center in Chicago, and we have Byron Katie's going to be Skyping in, talking to our audience, and Liz Donahue. So it's a full day of workshops around love, whether it's dating, whether it's self-love, whether it's a partnership, just different ways to fill yourself up with love.
Can you tell me about Global Hugs?
I certainly can. It's my favorite topic in the world. So Free Hugs was started by Juan Man in Australia back in 2004. And he had held up a sign. He got kicked out of places and arrested because it hadn't been done. And then in 2006, he continued to do it because he loved it. He was very lonely when he started it. And in 2006, some friends made a video of him doing it and put it on YouTube right when YouTube was getting big. And it, for a long time, was one of the most seen videos. And so people started doing free hugs all over the world. And then in 2008, I thought, wow, I'd seen the video so many times. And I thought, this is something Positive Focus should do. So I decided to do it in January. It was a snowy day at Navy Pier. And that's actually the story that's in Happy Stories, was my first experience with it. And I was terrified and excited all at the same time. I was worried about being looked like I was crazy. And then it was just such a heartwarming experience. We continued to do it. And then in July or August of that year, I decided, why don't we do it globally? So I just started emailing people and scheduled a global free hugs day and emailed organizations, and I got the humanities team. They sent it out to their group. And I wish I remember how many countries were in the first one, but the intent is to have huggers on each continent, which, Bernie, my geography is not good. I did not realize people don't live in Antarctica. So we still don't have huggers there. But as many countries as possible in all 50 U.S. states. So we do it once a year in May, and then people send me pictures of their free hugs, and I make a video of it.
Oh, great. You said someone else was doing free hugs, and a lot of times we think, well, someone else is already doing it. Why would I do it? And I look at things like fast food chains. There's a million of them, And so the next one didn't say, I'm not going to open a fast food chain because there's already one there. So I think more people have to do this and do the same things that you're doing to increase positive in the world. But what did you feel in that respect? You know, there was someone doing it. How did you think that yours was going to be successful?
I guess I just thought if you're doing anything that is creating more kindness in the world, you can't do it enough. So it's interesting that you asked that, though, because I have had people, and it's not that often, but I have had people email me that I've stolen the idea from one man. And I'm like, no, I have not stolen it. And so it's interesting when people think that you're taking somebody else's idea. But it was truly, if it can make one person smile, anybody should do anything that they can to help people to see that they matter in this world.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to ask you. What are some responses from people? How do they feel?
Oh, my goodness. It's so interesting because, again, I'm in Chicago, and we do it twice a month all year long. So in the winter, and it's cold out, I'm like, oh, I don't want to go today. Every time there's at least one person that gets a hug that I know that they really needed it. We get people who run across the street screaming free hugs and almost tackle us. We have people who are celebrating their birthday. We've had a older woman this summer who said she had just lost her husband 2 weeks ago and hadn't had a hug. We've had people who have just lost their jobs and needed a hug. One woman came into the line, and I mean, usually they're like 3-second hugs. I mean, they're not. And this woman was probably more like 30 seconds, and she was teared up, crying throughout the hug. We don't know why, and then she walked away and just said thank you. But I mean, it's just you forget sometimes, especially the more that we're living in an internet world, that we don't have that physical touch. Right. And stuff. So it really is powerful. Everybody who comes to help me do the hugs has loved it.
It's great stuff, Carol.
I love it. You got to come, Bernie.
Yes, I do. I got to get involved. There's a bunch of questions here I ask about, positive influence. We've talked about a lot of positive things so far, but I want to ask you if you can remember a time when you did something for someone else and just they really appreciated it. What was their reaction?
Well, it's interesting because the line of work I'm in, I get to hear more from people. So I do a Monday message every week, and it's just often something that I'm going through personally and how you can be, happier and more positive in your life. And so it just depends on the message, but I get emails back from people who have said how much that has touched them. Recently, I've had a woman who I did not know, but she called me and said that I was the only person who could help her remain positive while she's going through chemo treatment for cancer. So it just touches me to think that people want my help for that, because I just love being able to support people in their happiness.
Think about this way. And which question is harder to answer? Can you remember a time when someone did something really special for you and you really appreciated it?
I love that question. I hadn't really thought about it before, but somebody a few months ago asked me in a gratitude party I was having. And I actually was the one who wrote the question. I didn't realize I was going to get it. And I was like, right when I lost my job and I had started Positive Focus, somebody sent me in the mail five $100 bills.
Wow.
Thanking me for all the work I do. It was anonymous. I still don't to this day know who did it, but I'm assuming it had to be somebody involved, in Positive Focus to know that I had just lost my job. But it was just the note was incredibly touching, along with the fact that they sent that money.
How did you feel?
It was overwhelming. And I also am I need to know person, so I'm like, who was it? I was like trying to figure it out.
Was it a handwritten note or was it typed?
It was typed.
Oh, okay. You can't do any handwriting analysis.
No, not at all.
No detective work. So what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
Wow, I've gotten so much great advice. And I don't even remember who said this, nor do I know who to attribute the quote to. But it was several years ago, somebody said, you cannot worry and love at the same time. And first I thought, what are you talking about? I worry about my dog. I worry about my mom. And I love them both dearly. But then I realized at that moment that I'm worrying about them, that's a heavier energy that I'm sending out. So even though I say I love them, when I'm worried, I'm not focused on love. So that has been a huge wake-up call for me, because I would love to tell you I don't worry about anything. I still do, but I catch myself much quicker and turn it around into loving that whatever I'm worried about.
Right. So you can use the worry as a little bit of a notice,
Yeah.
A trigger, but love is positive flowing energy, and worry and anything else restricts it somehow so that you can evaluate. And I think that in our world, love is a lot of times based on how you've been hurt.
Yeah. And the insecurities or the walls that we built up to say that we're protecting ourselves from it.
Yeah. So it's safety more than anything.
Yeah.
And influences, you must have some great influences because you're doing great things. Who's your greatest positive influence?
Oh, goodness. Well, outside my mom, who is an amazing woman, I would have to say, I love Wayne Dyer, so I read a lot of his work, but truly, this is going to sound silly, but my biggest influence is Archbishop Desmond Tutu.
Oh, great.
And I've never met him. I saw him speak right before I started doing Global Free Hugs. And he was just amazing. And he talked about God as far as a universal concept rather than just a Christian God, which I loved. And he's funny and all the things he has gone through. But what amazed me the most about him is, so I just started Global Free Hugs, and I emailed info@tutu.com. And trust me, I emailed more infos than you can imagine. And somebody on his team emailed me back saying that he would like to participate. And so it was the first info response of anybody of significance. And I was just so excited about it. And we were getting close to the event, and I hadn't heard back from them. I'm like, oh, they just said they were going to, but they're really not. And like 3 or 4 days before the event happened, I get another email from his assistant attached to a church in Florida saying the bishop is going to be speaking at your service on Sunday. He wants to participate in Global Free Hugs. Please make a free hug sign and have somebody take some pictures and then email them to Carol Miller. And so he was involved 2 different times. And it was just really, besides the fact I think he is such a loving human, he reminded me that anything is possible when you believe it.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I remember that you posted it, and as you were telling the story, it began to unfold that it was you that said that he was a positive influence before. So that's great to hear.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. We've talked a lot about positive things, and we live in a beautiful world. Still, there's problems and issues and challenges that we face. There's homeless and hungry people. What can we do, in your mind, to make the world a better place? What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Oh, Bernie, I so love this question, because this is one of the big reasons and my biggest passion for At Positive Focus is our Gives Back program. I'm a firm believer what I focus on, I create. And there's so many amazing organizations out there doing good work, fighting things. They're fighting hunger. They're fighting a disease. They're fighting war. And for me, that just is such a heavy energy. And I know that they are doing it because they're passionate about creating peace or creating health or creating abundance of food. And so we're wanting the exact same thing in life, but for me, it's really about focusing on, when I'm thinking about the war-torn areas, I want to focus on peace and send love to that war-torn area. It's not like I want to bury my head in the sand knowing that there's nothing bad, so to speak, going on in the world, but I really focus on health. I really focus on enough food and see the beauty in those situations, that people who have come out of some really serious things and how much better off they are for that experience. So I really I'm a big believer on focusing on what you want and rather than what you don't want.
There's a consciousness that creates a problem, and that consciousness is not going to heal it as well as a loving, peaceful consciousness.
Exactly. I love the, and I don't remember it exactly, but I love the Mother Teresa quote on, if you have a anti-war rally, I will not come, but if you have a pro-peace rally, I will.
That's great. I was just thinking of an old bumper sticker that used to be on cars that you may remember. It said, "Kill your TV."
I don't remember that one.
I don't know if we want to use the energy to kill it.
Well, and I was just going to say that I don't, those types of words I try to avoid. But I also think that the TV, I mean, again, it's easy to blame something else. It's like the TV, the media, or whatever is at fault for this. And there's a lot of good stories out there that could be shared, but we focus on the stories that make the headlines. But I really think our world is a very loving place, and it's a very safe place, and it's a very caring place. And if people focus more on that, they would see it as well.
Overall, it is, because if it wasn't, we wouldn't walk outside. You know, the world is a great place, and the TV does focus on that. The TV really supplies a demand. If there was no demand for that, it would dissolve. So if we get mad at it, it increases the demand.
Right.
So the demand is made up of our inner energy, and that's exactly what you're talking about, is having a peaceful inner energy. Then everything else dissolves. It's not, like you said, burying your head in the sand. It's making yourself stronger, and that makes our world stronger. And right back to what you said before, it's individual.
Yeah, I very much agree with that. And I sometimes think that fear itself kind of gets a bad rap, because we talk about love and fear. But fear, I mean, my saying is allow fear to visit, just don't allow it to move in. Because when you're in a fear state, that allows you to say, oh, this doesn't feel good, I don't want this. And then you can focus on what you do want. And sometimes fear truly is a self-protective thing. You know, it's like, oh, I shouldn't walk on that side of the street, or I shouldn't go there. It's that intuition of knowing kind of thing. So I certainly have fearful moments. I don't stay there very long, and I allow it to remind me that I stepped into a lower energy.
Right. It's useful.
Exactly.
I want to ask you how we get a hold of you, your website, or, you know, if someone wants coaching or anything that you do, your Facebook pages. How do we get a hold of you?
That's so funny, because there's so many ways to get a hold of me. All of my emails come into one folder, so that will work. So it's really the easiest email to remember is carol@positive-focus.com.
Okay.
And then my personal website is carolccmiller.com, and that email is Carol as well. But you mentioned Facebook. I have the Positive Focus page, All Things Positivity, and Positive Focus Productions, and anybody can invite me to be a friend too. I love communicating with people.
Okay. And you have several pages. Is there, you know, I understand that Positive Focus Productions would apply to the events that you're doing.
Yes, that's more Chicago specific for our live events.
Okay.
Positive Focus is the nonprofit. So that is, it has a global audience, and I usually post 3 or 4 times a day on something uplifting. And then I just started doing my own page, which is All Things Positivity, which is more for my coaching, but it's still really more about uplifting people.
Okay, I see what the separation is on each one. Very cool.
I love what I do.
Yeah, you're just embracing it, and you're full of it. I'm in Phoenix right now, and over the years, I think I've only spent 1 or 2 summers in Phoenix, but I love the heat in the summer. You know, I walk out and it feels like there's no absence. It's so full, and it's just like God love and wrapping. And that's what you're doing. You're filling everything with love and positivity. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I really think that was what I was put on earth to do. And sometimes, especially when I first started the nonprofit, not having a clue how to run a nonprofit, I realized fairly quickly on I could not quit even if I wanted to, because it really is who I am.
That's great. Yeah, you can really hear the positive energy and the smile in your voice. Do you have any parting advice for everybody?
You know, I think that the thing that I would like people to know the most is truly that they do matter in the world. And it's so easy to start talking about them against me, but it really is we're all in this together. And I think the more we can speak from our own experiences rather than judging others for what they are doing, it just makes things a little bit more gentle as well. So, you know, I don't care for XYZ, but that doesn't mean XYZ is bad. So if we can really focus on our own personal experience with things rather than labeling things as bad would be a step in the right direction.
That's excellent. I really appreciate you and everything you're doing. So thank you, Carol.
You are so welcome, and I appreciate what you're doing. Goodology, I just love the term. It makes me smile when I think about it.
Wow, all things positivity. Great stuff. Thanks, Carol C.C. Miller, for talking with us. Visit the website at www.goodology.com to see anything Carol's doing with links to her stuff. And visit our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Goodology. And if you're into Twitter, we are simply @Goodology on Twitter. Thanks a lot. Enjoy your day, everyone. See you tomorrow.